problems. But how we resolve those problems, it is what is different. In the early stages of our democracy, our leaders used to sit down and talk and resolve our problems. But that dialogue, we don't have it anymore. That is why you find people fighting in parliament, because they do not have the capacity to sit down and resolve their issues. Right. So the African Transformation Movement is bringing back that dialogue, because with dialogue, people can resolve their issues. If, as the people, we cannot sit together, talk to one another, and resolve our own issues, we can never go anywhere. We can never rely on the courts to resolve our political problems, because we are not governed, or we are not led by courts. We are led by the people that we have elected. So the leaders need to provide leadership so that people do not resort to courts if they want solutions. We are in an unfortunate situation in the country whereby it is the courts and the commissions of inquiries that are leading the country. We do not have leadership. It is why, servants, now we need to provide leadership in the communities that we are in. There should be no community that protests, especially violently, if the economy member of ATM. Because as a member of ATM, you need to provide leadership in every community. Our manifesto that we are unpacking today, it is not promises. We are unpacking what we are committing ourselves to do as a party. Our manifesto covers 10 cardinal pillars. The first pillar, it is a pillar of peace, justice, safety, and security. The second one is sustainable economic growth that creates jobs. The third one, it is land, rural development, and food security. The fourth one, it is sustainable human settlements and basic services. The fifth one, it is education and skills development. Number 6, it is health and social services. 7, traditional and religious affairs. 8, youth and early childhood development. 9, empowerment of women and people with disabilities. And lastly, building a corrupt-free and capable development state. That is what we are committing ourselves to as the movement. Let us start with the first one, peace. We know that we are no longer living in a peaceful society, and this threatens the social, economic, and political stability. Year and year, crime is increasing in the country. And we know that in a society that is infested with crime, the economy can never grow. Hence, we find that the most important thing that we are focusing on, it is having peace in the country. Because when there is peace, then all other things will follow. Now, what we commit ourselves to do as the party on this pillar, firstly, we'll transform our justice system by elevating components of the African customary law to be in the same level as the Roman Dutch law, especially in the rural areas. Also, we'll also review the parole system and deny bail for certain categories of crime. We do not understand why a criminal that has killed people is given bail. If a person is given bail, they can go around the communities making people not to be free and not to testify in the courts of law. So there needs to be categories whereby you are not given bail for. And we'll also ensure that there is full integration of all former liberation movement soldiers, meaning your MK, Azanla, and APLA, into the security cluster to assist in combating crime. Because the stats are saying almost 2.1 million crimes are recorded in one calendar year. Therefore, we need the assistance of the people that are trained so that they can assist us to combat crime. And lastly, and most importantly, we want a reinstatement of the capital punishment for hardcore criminals. Seventh, fellow South Africans, we need to have the capital punishment to be brought back into the country. We need to have it back. We are in a period now where we are campaigning. We have the 16 days whereby we are campaigning of no violence against women and children. This campaign was started in 1998. It is 20 years later now, and the gender-based violence, instead of decreasing, it is increasing. Now, if you look at the stats, they will tell you clearly that South Africa has got a rate that is 4 times higher than the world rate in terms of gender-based violence. Whereas I think we are one of the few countries that has got this campaign. Meaning this campaign, it is not effective because it is not deterring people from committing crimes against these vulnerable groups. It is for that reason we are saying we need to move beyond campaigns, because clearly these campaigns have not worked. We need to reinstate a capital punishment. We can't live in a society whereby the taking of human life is a normality. Because it seems as if we have accepted that abantu bayabulawa. It must disturb us that a 17-year-old will kill a 10-year-old because they fought with a girlfriend yakhe. It must disturb us that 11 people died at Sondela this past week. It must disturb us when one taxi is shot 255 times because of people that do not want other people to live. We cannot live in a society whereby criminals are having it easy. Criminals are enjoying themselves and they are in peace, and the majority of the South African citizens are living in fear. It is for that reason we are saying capital punishment must be brought back to restore order and restore peace in this country. On the second pillar of sustainable economic growth, most importantly, that creates jobs. We don't want economic growth for the sake of economic growth. We want economic growth that translates to jobs being created. Now, South Africa, as we all know, is rich with natural resources, such as your gold, diamond, etc., etc. However, if you look at poverty and unemployment and inequality, it is not reflecting the amount of natural resources that we have. Therefore, what we commit ourselves to as a party is that we'll create conditions and structure the economy such that it will industrialize through manufacturing and processing of the raw materials, instead of us exporting these raw materials and bringing them back processed to us. We must have economy that we own it ourselves. Let us export finished products to the world instead of exporting raw materials, and have these raw materials being processed in other countries and then sold to us at very high prices. Let us create that kind of an economy. Also, we'll establish a state-owned bank as a means of changing the structure of the country's banking sector. The country's banking sector is currently dominated by 5 or 4 banks. And these 5 or 4 banks, their mandate is very simple. It is to make a profit out of all of the South African citizens. We need a state bank that will have as its mandate to develop and liberate our people economically. Because we cannot live in a society whereby almost half of the population is living in debt. Because people, they go to banks, and when they can't afford those loan repayments, they rely on omashonisa, which charge plus minus 40% per month interest. We cannot let our people be slaves of debt, because being in debt, that is the modern day slavery. Now this bank that will create, it will liberate our people so that they are not indebted. Also, we'll structure the informal sector such that it prioritizes and protects the local people of the country. In the country, we need mass participation of South Africans in the microeconomy. When we speak about the microeconomy, we speak about the township economy, where you find your spazas, your barber shop, and so forth. Currently, our people are not participating in that economy. And as a result, all of those profits that are made there, they are taken out of the country. Whereas we need our people to be involved and participate in that sector. Because when our people participate in that sector, they take all of those funds and reinvest in the economy or reinvest in the communities. We can't allow a situation whereby our people do not participate, whereas they also do not have jobs. And lastly, we'll have a subsidy for we'll subsidize the taxi industry. In the country, the taxi industry, it is transporting 65% of the population. The buses transport 20% of the population. The rail transport 15% of the population. But the rail transport as well as the buses are subsidized by government. But e-taxi that we use every day are not subsidized. And because they are not fully subsidized, it creates an unfortunate situation whereby they need to charge us higher taxi fares because they do not get a subsidy. Now, when we subsidize the taxis, as the people that need to commute every day will benefit, because when you subsidize, it means them as the taxi owners, they will need to decrease the taxi fares. So we can't allow a situation whereby the people that transport almost 65 or 70% of the people are not subsidized. On land, rural development and food security, we acknowledge that there are imbalances of land ownership in the country, and we fully agree that an effective policy should be put in place to correct this predicament. Now, what we'll do as a party, we'll prioritize a policy intervention that supports land reform, which redistributes land to all of the people that were dispossessed, as well as the landless people, along with investment in farming equipment and technical skills to all of the people that will benefit. We do not want land to be redistributed iphelele apho. The people that will get the land must have the resources to work the land, because ultimately the land must produce to the GDP of the country. We do not need land that is in the hands of people that won't use it for the benefit of the country. We'll also create jobs in rural areas by investing more in rural enterprises, small-scale farmers, rural healthcare facilities, and other initiatives that seek to eradicate rural poverty. What we need to be clear in, when you speak about development, you focus on the least developed areas. You cannot go and invest in Sentin, whereas kuko ikobo edinga investment. We need to prioritize Ilali, because that is where the majority of the people need assistance from the government. We'll also resuscitate agricultural colleges and reintroduce agriculture and entrepreneurship subjects in the lower levels of basic education. On the fourth pillar, which is sustainable human settlements and basic services, South Africa faces a challenge regarding the acceleration of housing delivery. Many plans and programs are in place, however, they are not implemented. Now, what the ATM will do, will provide homes instead of providing houses. Meaning, a housing that will provide should be inclusive and integrated simultaneously with social and economic amenities like your schools, community halls, healthcare facilities, and parks. We'll also review the housing request annually as a means of verifying if the needs for a house still exist and prioritize those who are in desperate need for a house. And most importantly, we'll drive economic development in rural areas so that people are not forced or compelled to move to Joburg, to Durban, to Cape Town. Rather, people must find economic opportunities where they are, because the need for housing, it is more in those big cities, because people are migrating to big cities because they want these economic opportunities. So we need to provide these economic opportunities in the rural areas in which people are. On the fifth one, which is education and skills development, we know that our education system is still biased towards the apartheid mindset, and it still produces job seekers instead of job creators. Now, what we'll do as the ATM, we want to ensure that there is quality education, firstly, which is free, and most importantly, compulsory. It must be compulsory for you to go to school. Because if our young people are going to school, it means they get access to skills. And when they get access to skills, it means our future will be bright. Because if we have a multitude of our young people that are not educated, they will lead themselves into a life of crime. They might lead themselves to a life of desperation, because we do not want young people who are dependent on grants. Yes, we have grants now, but if we educate our people and they have economic opportunities, maybe after 20 years or so, there should be nothing called a grant in the country, because Abantu can make income for themselves. We do not want a culture of dependency. We want a culture whereby people are dependent on themselves instead of being dependent on the government. We want to also decommercialize education with the intention of moving towards main education and essential service. Quality education, we can never allow it to be for those who are economically well. Because now, the people that have access to quality education, it is the people that have funds and they can take their kids to private schools. We need to learn from countries like Rwanda, whereby they had to close down their private schools because the quality of education that was provided in the public schools was of a quality level. We need to go to that extent as a country, because majority of the population which do not afford taking their kids to private schools are only exposed to the public education system, which produces people whereby they cannot, most of them, they cannot even get to tertiary level. And the ones that get to tertiary level, they cannot proceed there. On the sixth pillar, which is health and social services, accessing quality health services is almost impossible for many South Africans, especially in rural areas. Especially Zlali. It's as if we have accepted that poor services are made for abantu basezilalini. Now we cannot allow a situation whereby the people that live in the urban areas, they've got access to quality health care, and the people that are living in the rural areas, they do not have access to quality, and in fact, they do not have that access because the distance between their homes and the healthcare facilities, there is a huge distance there. Public health facilities remain the only option for more than 42 million citizens who do not have private health insurance, who are evidently growing more ill by the day. Now, what we'll do as the movement, we'll reopen all of the nursing colleges that were closed down. And also, we'll open additional medical schools, because in our big country, we can't rely on taking our young people to learn medicine in Cuba. And when they have to come back to South Africa, you find that they need to spend a lot of time adjusting from the manner in which they're taught in Cuba to the manner in which our medical